Hello and welcome to the Zach Brown Show, the show that introduces you to old friends for the first time. I'm your host, Zach Brown. This one's going to be a little different, guys. On this episode, I'm the one being interviewed by my good buddy, Jim Carmack. So grab a snack, sit back, and prepare to learn a little bit more about me.
The Zach Brown Show is brought to you by
Bucky McBoing-Boing's Berry Blast Bubble Bath. Fun to say, fun to play.
And
Bitterman's Miracle Mange Balm. Your dog is just itching to get it.
Well, I'd like to say thank you so much for having me on. I'm honored and so grateful to be here. Zach Brown Show is probably one of the highlights of my career, obviously. So what a joy. Let me just say that. But I love that I get to do what I enjoy doing, which is just talk to you. So Zach, first of all, again, thanks. But let me just open things up. When did you first realize you had superpowers?
Oh, probably when I was 2, when I was able to lift that car off of the lady at the supermarket.
Wait, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong notes. This is wrong. Sorry. This is Zach Brown origin story. Okay. I apologize. Okay. No, seriously, Zach, I feel like I've known you for a while. I feel like I know a lot about you, but give us a glimpse of Zach Brown kind of as a child. Describe who you were even starting up. Give us a little glimpse of baby Zach, if you will, and kind of let us get to know you that way.
So I was homeschooled my whole life, so I had a lot of time with the television, to be quite honest. And so I think that's where my just appreciation for comedy and like really great writing came from. So, most kids were watching Barney and Blue's Clues and things like that. But I was sitting with my dad, either watching Raiders of the Lost Ark or like Cheers. And these jokes that, like a 5-year-old kid wasn't really understanding. It was one of those, like beat, laugh. And you saw these crazy characters like Norm or Frasier running around with scissors. I didn't know why that was funny, but I knew my dad was laughing. And after a while, you get it. And so everybody always says I'm such an old soul. And so I just appreciate those movies and like great comedians and whatever. So I was always on the screen, like really like just attached to it. I love production. I like watching how a story is told. So many Disney movies, like just every American kid, honestly. There was obviously that weird stretch in the 90s where I feel like churches were just boycotting Disney, but we weren't one of those families. But I guess I've just always loved good, innocent, like fun. I know it's such a simple thing, but I've always wanted to be the guy who's like telling the story or entertaining the room. I don't know if it's because I'm a firstborn, like type A personality. And I'm not necessarily the guy I shouldn't say that because I do love to be the guy to jump up first to tell the story. And if I'm not, I'm usually pushed into that spot. You do. I think it was at Trevor's wedding rehearsal dinner or whatever. And I like happened to interrupt your first speech and you just went, well, I think you should say something next. And it was like, oh, it's time to say something.
You're very good at it. So when you have a gift, you use it.
I guess if you're going to interrupt, you should come prepared.
So you have obviously a good relationship then with your dad, with both your parents, with your mom and dad. Do you think that was vital too in kind of your formation, both with timing and appreciation for what they thought was funny and being in that close-knit group with them in your formative years as well?
I do. For one, the homeschooling thing, I have such a close relationship with my parents, especially my mom, because she was there teaching us. And something that we've talked about, like as I've gotten older, I've asked them, because you see other people, how they parent, and you see other kids and even how their speech patterns develop and their conversations. And you can see some kids that really just seem like they're kind of behind on the curve and they're still on baby talk. And there's other kids where they're very young, but very with it. Like they're having full conversations or using bigger words and they genuinely know what they mean. And I always find that fascinating. So I've asked my parents, because I've seen videos of me as a kid and things like that. And I just said, what made it, that I was a person that was engaged in things? They said, we talked to you and we didn't talk down to you or talk baby talk. We would talk with you and have conversations with you. And I think it was almost like they were managing up, as people say, like it just caused me to be close with them and maybe have a better understanding of the world around me maybe a little sooner. I don't know. It could be totally off here. Maybe I am a genius and have superpowers, but definitely humble above all else.
That's important.
I think that's part of it is that constant dialogue. And I remember even as a little kid, I remember like at church, I would always get sat next to like older people. Like when I talk about older people, it was like the people that were like the old ushers and the deacons, and they would sit and talk to me. And looking back, I'm like, well, what would I say to them? I don't know, but I was listening. It's like I was, as a little person, just gathering information. And I think that's really everything. I think we complicate reading and how all that works. And it's like, we're just kind of memorizing it. We're intaking this thing and regurgitating it. So I think the faster that you put kids in like smart environments, they just kind of have to like learn to keep up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. So did your desire to kind of work on comedic timing and be in the center and be involved, did that ever push you maybe on the verge of some things you shouldn't have been doing? Like give us a young Zach Brown story that you got in trouble for doing, or what's one thing that you maybe don't want everybody to know, but that you got to tell us what you did when you were little.
Okay. The first thing that comes to mind, and I don't know, well, two things really. The one thing, and this sounds like, oh, that's super sweet, but it's totally dorky, is that like kids have rock star heroes as little kids. But my rock star hero was literally our worship leader. And so we have pictures of me like in our house dressed in like khaki pants, penny loafers with tassels, like a blue Stafford shirt, like tucked in, and a Casio keyboard, and like my like Mr. Mike microphone, little boombox from Toy Story or whatever. And I was leading worship in our living room at like 4 and 5 years old. I'd put on our church CDs because that's what you did in Pentecostal churches in the 90s. Everybody made albums. We had our CDs, and I would like play for the room. And so it's such a silly thing. It wasn't like, oh, I was trying to be Elvis, or I was trying to be like, Jimi Hendrix or whatever. I was like being the worship leader, and people are like, that's lame. But that was the weird thing that I think that I did as a kid. But it was, again, part of that, I don't know, like being on stage. The thing that I think goes to like the comedic timing and whatever is I was a part of a homeschool group, and there was probably, I don't know, like 75 kids. And they had decided that we were going to do a Christmas play. And looking back, this is very clever because I love stories where you take the story that you know and you go, but this is what's happening over here. And so the play was called Hotel Bethlehem. And it was basically like the story of this hotel that was next to the manger. So it takes place on the people that are, it's all about the people that were staying there and the people that worked there. And we had gone out of town when they first announced it and gave out all the parts. And so I remember coming back a week behind, and everybody had started learning lines, and they had all their scripts and everybody had their parts. And I remember I walked in and I said, oh, this sounds like fun. Do I get to be a part? And the lady who was over the whole thing, she goes, oh, you're the lead. They basically held it for me to get back. And so we have some VHS somewhere where I'm wearing this horrible olive colored suit that somebody had given to me. I don't know why people just give away ugly suits. If you're listening to this and you're wanting to give a kid a suit, make them look good, because then they'll remember you and they'll love you forever, and they'll choose which home you're going to, and they'll put you in a good one. But it was lame. But I think that's another part, learning the script and being the guy that was delivering the funny lines. And even then, so my gig was I was the hotel manager of the Hotel Bethlehem. And I was the people who told the maids and the doorman and what to do. And I don't think I had a lead in any song, but I had the most lines. And I remember going in and basically being like, this is the show and this is what we're going to do. I got to be the Michael Scott of Hotel Bethlehem. And I remember standing on the stage that night in front of this packed house with everybody who's, excited to see their kids. And that was this is it. This is where I'm supposed to be, in front of people.
So for a lot of people, being on stage or public speaking, that kind of thing, being in the spotlight is a crippling fear. For you, it's just always kind of been part of you, or even from an early age, you've just kind of been drawn to that maybe?
More or less. I took piano lessons as a kid and I honestly hated it, but I'm incredibly thankful for it now. We had a very prominent piano store in downtown Pensacola, right on the main drag, and we would have recitals sometimes, like in the main window. So it was like a 9-year-old kid, 11-year-old kid, you're playing and you're nerve wracking, trying to get through this song. And then people are like just stopping in the window and staring at you. And then we moved on to bigger arenas or whatever. But to quote the late, great Eddie Van Halen, I can't believe I'm actually using that adjective. But I heard an interview one time where this was in like the 5150 years. So, I mean, all the David Lee Roth stuff had passed. They'd have number one single. And somebody asked him, they're like, what's it like to play in front of an arena of people? And he said, I still get butterflies every single time we go on. But he said, I hit that first chord and I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. And so that's for me. There's so many times where like wherever I'm playing or wherever I'm taking the proverbial stage, like my heart is thumping like crazy. But the moment that the green light goes, the gun goes off, whatever, that it's showtime, like it's something turns on, this other like thing happens. And if you've ever been on stage, like, that it's on, it's just time to go. And as soon as it's done and you hit that last note or sing that final like line, whatever, and you walk off that stage, I'm just like done. It's like spent. Everything has been like laid on the floor. And that's to me one of the greatest feelings in the world.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So when did you kind of start to put these pieces together? You're growing up and you're getting older. And so let's say, your teenage years, you got something that's inside you. You feel like you're made for something and you enjoy being in the spotlight. What were kind of the first or early, projects you worked on or things that you really started to kind of put together to say, no, this is something I really feel like I'm called to do this?
So going back to the film thing, I always loved movies. I always loved projects. And even as a little kid, I really enjoyed watching like behind the scenes featurettes, wherever I'd see them, like just seeing the guy running the camera. In my mind, like the director, the camera guy, the producer, they were all one person, as they were calling the shots. No 10-year-old kid understands the hierarchy of Hollywood.
The gaffer, like what's he actually do?
Yeah, exactly. What does a best boy do? It's probably somebody's
grip. Yeah.
My maternal grandfather videoed every vacation, and bless his heart, he would narrate every single detail. Like, even though you knew what you were looking at, you knew who was in the thing, he was telling you exactly what's happening. And in my mind, like, again, that was how you do it. And so I'd eventually gotten my own little camcorder, took these little like mini VHS tapes or DV tapes, whatever they were. And I just started filming my friends in the neighborhood, and I would write little scripts. I would always be writing whatever. I'd either be ripping off something that I'd seen in a movie or like an SNL skit or whatever, but we'd be writing stuff. So I remember our neighborhood was Mariners Oaks. And so we did a thing called Mariners Most Wanted. And like, I wasn't in it, but I was filming the whole thing. And it was like my sister and her friend, our neighbor, and they were like catching the bad guys of the neighborhood, neighborhood crime. And then we started
mediocre bad boys, sort of bad boys.
Exactly.
What you gonna do?
Stole my popsicle, whatever it was, And so it was always the kid who stole the bike. That was the big thing. It was always the kid that stole the bike. And, we'd like tie wagons to the back of bicycles. And I'm like sitting I was always the camera guy. I wanted cause I could see there's something that I've always like had it with this thing where I could see the product in my head, whether it's working on an album or working on a video, like I know what it's supposed to look like. So it's like, if it doesn't look like this, it's not going to work. And I can't trust anybody else with the thing. So I have to sit in the wagon myself and there's a signal to the guy and he takes off at full speed down this hill and I'm filming and these kids are running behind the thing. And we're like, probably people are like, what are these kids doing? But I always loved that. I didn't have any editing software. It was literally like editing right there in film, like cutting, and they're always choppy. And you get like a split second of like a bad take before that. And then we'd get all the parents in a living room. It was the best. And then that kind of shifted, and there were 3 guys in my neighborhood. It was me, my friend Carl, and my buddy Josh. And we formed this little troupe called Lame to You. And we just made like YouTube videos, and it was Josh's YouTube name. So like, we didn't even pick it. It didn't make sense. We adopted it and became who we are. And, it could have been like Purple Pickle Pumpernickel, and that would have been our thing.
Careful. We don't want to beat this down. Hold on.
Yeah. The first time we had a show. And so, that was what we would do. And so we just filmed videos, and like, it was just, I don't know. We didn't ever know if we were going to get big. We didn't try to be the next like Smosh or Rhett and Link or Ryan Higa. We were just like, we want to make videos and we want to impress people. And that's what we did. We always made these films. And I think the culmination of it was really the original Zach Brown show. And my youth pastor at the time came to me and he was like, hey, I want you to do a video for youth. And I said, well, what do you want me to do? And he said, just make something funny that we can play before service. I said, okay. I said, is it okay if we post it on YouTube afterwards? Because, that's like, sounds exciting when you're like 16. And he goes, yeah. Well, at the time, YouTube had a cap that you could only post 10-minute videos. There was like, somehow you could only go to 10 minutes. So he said, yeah, you can make it. You just can't make it longer than 10 minutes. We said, okay. So because I'm a bit of a narcissist, I said, well, we're going to call it the Zach Brown Show. And I got all my friends and we said, we're going to make it part Wayne's World, part Letterman, part Johnny Knoxville show. I haven't decided if I want to bleep on this show, so I'm just going to leave it at that. We're going to do stunts and stupid things and interviews, and we're just going to run with it and see what happens. And so they gave us a camera to use from the church, and I got my buddy Jimmy, and we ran through and we interviewed kids, and we asked some stupid questions like, pickles or mayonnaise? If on a scale of 1 to 10, how's hairy is your back? And the best answer was -0 because that's not a number, but that girl will go down in infamy. We did incredibly stupid stuff that we should not have done at 16 years old. And I don't know why parents just like trust us to do these things. So if you take dry ice,
you're okay.
Exactly. We found out that when you take dry ice and water and put it inside a 2-liter bottle and tighten it, that pressure builds and then they explode. Well, it's great when you use little 12-ounce like Coke bottles, but when you find the 2-liter Mountain Dew things and load it up, we discovered that not only will it explode and make a very loud sound, but it will put a 3-foot wide crater in the church soccer field and split a shovel in half, causing Mike Miller to go deaf for a week and a half. Or at least lose partial tones. I think he's fine now, but it was great. And a kid jumped off of a bike into the ice cold water in like January, and it was just ridiculous. And we were going to do this every single week. We're like, this is amazing. And it took us 2 months to make the first one. And so when the first one's done and we show it and the whole youth group erupts and we're like, we're rock stars, we're gods, we can't be stopped. And then the horrible question happens after you put out a first of something. When's the next one?
What's next? Yeah.
And we quickly scrambled because we'd announced it was going to be this weekly thing and everybody wanted to be on the show after the first one. And we'd used all of our good ideas on the first one. So we're trying to figure out what to do in the second one. And the second one was so stupid. Like nothing good came out of it. And I can still remember to this day, I was in a Wendy's. I'm 16 years old. I'm just trying to make movies. This kid's dad comes up to me, not even a guy that I really know well. He like helped out in the youth group and he comes up to me, he goes, hey man, I saw your second episode. And I went, oh yeah. And he goes, I kid you not. Jimmy looks at me and just goes, man, that was not great. He goes, that first one was way better. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry. And we never made a second one. I mean, I never made a third one. Like that was it. So that was my extent of just like making movies. I wanted to do something. I just wanted to like make people laugh. I just want people to like see something that I made and give, because we're Americans. You want to produce something and then you want people to tell you that they liked it and then they want more and you want to be like the king. So yeah, that was kind of like the early foundations of that nonsense.
Sounds like you ran into the curse of M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah.
You never get that first one.
The Zach Brown Show. We'll be right back.
Come on in to Carl's Arcade, where we have all the hottest video games, including Legend Seekers, Ninja Academy, and Jackalope Hunter. Wow! You're darn right, wow. At Carl's Arcade, you can win fun prizes, eat the cheesiest pizza, and try the all-new Tube of Mystery.
All right, so just put your hand in there and try to guess what it is.
Is it pudding?
Nope.
Is it peanut butter?
Wrong again.
Well, what is it, mister?
You don't want to know.
Located conveniently near the Windjammer Mall, behind Penny's Popsicles. Carl's Arcade. Live your adventure today.
Oh, boy!
So after developing through this and through your teenagers and seeing something that you're actually good at and that you thrive at doing, how do you then transition this into something that, I don't know, maybe makes money?
Yeah.
Let's say could provide for you in some sort of a financial way. How do you transfer this into a job? Because there's that dream of fame that a lot of the kids have. I just want people to look at me and I just want people to see me and, I want to be a star. But how do you transition into something that you can do to make a living with it?
Yeah. So having been homeschooled, I guess my style of learning was very different. The whole classroom thing was honestly terrifying to me. So as high school was nearing an end, the idea of college was so far from me. That was not my thing. That was a scary thing that I didn't know if I could even attain to. And in the middle of that process, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my what's next step, there was a guy that owned a studio in Pensacola called Digital Media Education. There's it was a school, but they also were a working production company, and they did, anything from albums, kind of one-off commercial specials. I think they produced some Christian television, like church shows or whatever. But they would do other TV shows. And the guy who owned and operated the studio, I'd known since I was a little kid, and he came up to me and he said, "Hey man, I know you're trying to figure out what you want to do with your life. And I've seen some of your videos." I think that's a great thing. I know you're trying to figure out what you want to do with your life, but he comes up to me and he said, I want you to come to my school. And I said, okay. At the time I wasn't making any money. I was working in a Panera Bread, minimum wage, whatever, and I was like, well, that's great. And all thank you so much. I'll let you know, which is, code for I don't have money for that, but thank you. And he goes, no, I want you to come to the school. I really feel led to let you come for free. And so I said, okay, well, if that's what you're feeling, then I'd be stupid to turn this down. And he's like, okay, great. Class starts Monday night, 6:00. I was like, okay. I said, what do I need? He said, bring a pencil. I'm like, really? He goes, no. I got my pencil. So I show up on Monday night. And it's me and a few other students. And I have no idea what to expect. And I walk in and I'm having this somewhat feeling of, oh, thank God I will have something to tell people now when they ask me, so what are you doing after high school, young man? Then I can be oh, I'm in a media school, because that sounds like you're doing something. I still had no idea what I was doing, but I had something to say in a conversation. Maybe not the second sentence, but I had the first one, which is sometimes all you need, and a diversion. And so I went in and he goes, okay, the band will be here in an hour and we're going to talk through this equipment really quick and start setting up for the session. And I was like, did I miss something? And he goes, oh, tonight we're having a band come in. They're going to be recording a demo single, and we are going to set up the entire studio, record everything, and take us into the first stages of producing this song. I was like, okay. So he literally starts out with, this is a Shure 58 microphone. And then we proceeded to learn how to properly set up and mic a studio drum kit, all the microphones and that whole thing. The band showed up, and then basically it was after that I kind of just stood back and watched, because there was nothing more that I could do. I didn't know how to do anything. And they produced this single, and over the semester we had a rap group, we had a heavy metal acid rock band, we had kind of a punk Blink-182 thing, we had a jazz trio. We had a group come in from some sort of Christian gospel group. They were very different. Which side story, which is really cool, is I produced their album, and they did a whole album. And then probably 6 months later, I was at a county fair or a community fair, whatever, at a church. And I was across the grounds and I could hear this song. And I'm like, I know this song. And the band was there playing it. And it was just this cool thing. I was like, I produced their album. It was this neat thing. They probably didn't do any. No, definitely not. I don't think they made their gas money getting to the event, but anyway, they're sweet people. So we did all this whole thing. And so what was really cool is I had this thing now in my pocket, and it gave me, something to put on a resume. It gave me a set of skills that I would have not had before. And that really opened some, really the following doors to what I was going to do next in life.
What was that next thing? So at this point, not to just like lead into that, but at this point, you're kind of starting to put the pieces together, as well as have I'm guessing you have now a more of a goal, or maybe more of a horizon in mind that you're seeing. And I don't want to bring them in at the wrong time, but I know just from talking to you, at some point, God's calling your life too. And so how are these things kind of merging and lining up together for you?
Yeah. So at the time, I would say my dream, my life goal, like since I was like 3 years old, I wanted to be a Disney Imagineer. Like I wanted to be the guy that told the story. The thing that I'd always tell people is people would go, "What's an Imagineer?" When I'd say that. And, I say, okay, well, we didn't just roll up on a Tuesday and Pirates of the Caribbean was there. Like somebody had to come in with that concept and then not just say, okay, it's a ride with pirates. They had to come up with a story. What are we going to see over here? What's happening with these guys? Okay, then what's next? And where's it going to go? I always love that. It's the difference between like, an interstate fair where you've got just a ride that goes in a circle to a story that you ride through. And I'd always loved that growing up, in Florida my whole life. We'd go to Disney probably once or twice a year. And so I loved that and I wanted to do that. So I didn't see really where this, DME thing, the studio recording was going to fit. But the one thing I was kind of hoping for was, okay, like I've got production assistant on my job, on my resume, and I know how to do some video. So I'm sure somebody in Imagineering needs some videoing, or maybe they record some music for a ride. I don't know. Like I was just grasping at straws at that point. And so it came to the place where I was like, okay, I'm getting the knack for this a little more professionally. It wasn't just making videos in the backyard and like throwing kids off of docks,
blowing up 2 liters and stuff.
Yeah. So in 2012, I saw, it's kind of funny, the foreshadowing, was watching on our local news station, and they did a story about this AA baseball team that's going to be coming to our town. And their affiliate was the Cincinnati Reds, which is like my family's baseball team. So that was really cool. We were excited about that, just that we're getting a team. And my mom said to me, "Hey, you should go down and audition. Like they're asking for open calls to people to come, like, whether you got a resume or you're just talent, whatever, just come down." So I thought, I want to just, maybe I'll see if I can be a bat boy. Like I had no idea of anything else that I could be. I was like, I'll chuck hot dogs for all I care, just to go get a free season of baseball, basically. So I go in and I sat down with this guy, and it was kind of crazy. And, sometimes you feel like you have words that are fed to you. They're not your own. You're just you say things. Sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes it's not. I had a very, very minor resume with like 2 things on it and whatever. So I walk up and this guy said, "Hi, my name is Andrew, and I'm head of the production department here for the Pensacola Blue Wahoos." And I just went, "Oh, great. I'll be working with you then." I don't know where that came from. I just said it. And he looked at me with a little bit of a shock and a smile. And he said, "Well, we'll see about that." We just kind of talked a little bit. And he's looking at my very small resume that could have probably fit on a 3x5 card. And he looks down and he said, "Well, what's this digital media education thing?" And I kind of told him what I did there. And he goes, "Okay." He sets it on this side stack, which I thought could either be a very good thing or he's throwing that away. I don't know.
Depends on how big the stack is, right?
Exactly. So he puts me in this little folder over here. And he goes, "Okay, great. Like you'll be getting a call from us or whatever." And I'm thinking, great. They're going to call me to tell me like, you're going to be the guy who's, putting the fries in the hot grease. So they called me for like a second interview and they said, "Yeah, we want to offer you a position with our production department." And so I got to work a whole season of baseball. I got to see, history happen in my hometown and watch, minor league records be broken. And it was really an exciting time to get to be right down the field with the ball players and get to know guys that eventually went on to be in the majors. And so see my friends on the TV, which was really cool. But I was still working at Panera at that time. And it was just like, what is the point of this whole thing? Like the baseball season has ended. It was all seasonal. What am I going to do now? I wasn't a full-time production guy. And so there was a guy there that he was one of our directors, technical directors, and his name was Jack. And all I knew about Jack was that Jack worked at a TV station in town. And I was like, "Oh, that's cool." So he reaches out to me through like Facebook Messenger or something like that. And he said, "Hey, we've got a position open for a production assistant at the TV station. Do you want to do it?" I immediately said yes. And then I Googled what a production assistant did. Now, I'd like to point out that if you should probably specify the production assistant and what job, because I looked at production assistant and it was coming up like in big movies and like things like that. And it was like, it was so great. Again, hindsight. When I Googled this, it was like input in the script writing and the filming in this and all these things. And I'm like, wow, this is huge. This is going to be great for me. I'm really moving up in the world. And spoiler alert, you are a glorified cameraman. You stand there and you point when the person's supposed to talk, or you're rolling a teleprompter, which is probably the most dull job in the world, second only to toll booth operator, which Alec Baldwin once compared to psychological mind game because everybody's going somewhere but you. But long story short, I accepted that position, and that is where I got to meet our interviewer for this evening, Mr. Jim Carmack.
And that's where I come into the picture and start getting to know you. And so I can input a little bit into this because I know from working with you and seeing you as a production assistant, who, yes, is the guy who stood behind the camera and points when it's their turn to talk, or went and got coffee for the anchors when they asked you to, or all those things, that what you always did that made you stand out was your attitude, which was always upbeat, happy. You were trying to be an encourager. You were always the one who was standing out, and you were noticeable. And I mean that in a good way. You were not one of the nameless, faceless people behind the camera, because you made an effort to speak to people, to be an encouragement, to step out of, that zone. And I think what that shows in you, which is why we're talking today, is that you do have something, a different spark, different something inside that was more of a drive. And you can tell that. I mean, it's something you try not to judge people quickly just based on first impressions or who they are, but you can tell if people are there because they want to grow and continue and learn and evolve and get better, or if they're just there to do the time and get out. And so I can speak into that part of getting to meet you, is that you do make an excellent first impression, but you also follow that up with a good second and third impression. I know this is your show, so that's why I'm trying to pump you up a little bit, but no, I mean, but
an episode's in, I hope they like me enough.
You were able to, hang with conversations with people who maybe you shouldn't have. You were able to engage in input and ask and learn and be involved. And you had, like I said, you had kind of that presence about you, where people wanted to talk to you, you're engaging. And so, okay, enough flattery. So you're at the local TV station. Oh, look at the time. Well, okay, we've had enough of this. So you're there at a local TV station, running camera and teleprompter and those things. And was there a desire to work your way up, through the TV station to become either involved in news or work with directing or get, producing, that kind of stuff? Or was this like, no, maybe this isn't kind of a path for me right now?
So it's kind of funny when you look at seasons in life, when you're in the moment, like nobody ever knows when it's the golden age or when a season feels really bad, but you look back and wish you could be a part of it or whatever. Again, hindsight being 2020, looking at my time at Channel 3, so much happened in my life, like so many signposts and like stop signs or U-turns, whatever. And I'm incredibly thankful. I just want divert for a second. I remember the exact moment and where exactly I was standing in our studio when you and I clicked. And it was a Saturday show, and it was you. Jim was our weather guy at the time, and on the weekends he also did reporting and whatever. And then we had our weekend anchor, the phenomenal Will Kennedy, and I won't even get into secret sports words right now. We're going to move on past that. But this amazing thing that would happen on the weekends, I guess it was a Sunday because that's when I was the studio. But anyway, Will would always be blasting some sort of 80s hair metal from his phone, literally to the second before we ran our opening first live local. But they're blasting that night, and he cuts it, and Jim continues the line. It was a Def Leppard song, and he stopped, and then I picked up on the next lyric, and Jim stopped. He's got his hands together as you would when you'd stand there at the chroma key, and you turned and looked at me and you went, "You know Def Leppard?" And I said, "Yeah." And you said, "We're going to be friends." again, that goes back to my being an old soul and raised by parents who graduated in 85. Like I have that love of that music. And so we quickly bonded over the 80s. And so it was cool. Like you're saying, like getting to have court with people that I probably shouldn't have. I was very quickly aware of the fact that everybody around me, at least on my team, had gone to school, like real school for being in television production. Like they had spent years doing it. And I'd spent like just this one semester and just happened to have a ball season under my belt. And news wasn't ever something that I thought I'd be interested in or wanted to do. And now that I worked in it, it's the farthest thing from my mind. And I've probably, I left in 2015. In the 5 years since I've left, I've probably only watched a collective 1 hour of news since. Being in the news will either do two things to you. One, you want to be a part of it and you want to be a part of that thing and make it work, or you will want to be as far from it as you can. Because when you're seeing the negative stories at 4, 5, 6, 9, and 10, it is so negative and so depressing. Like, you get a child murder story or whatever, and you hear that at 4, 4:30, 5, 6, 9, 10, and 10:30. Like by the time you go home, you just got to go put on something warm and fuzzy to make you feel okay about the world. And so news wasn't what I wanted to do, but I was getting such a kick out of learning how television worked, how it's not a game of minutes, it's a game of seconds. And how everything was referred to. And the magic time on Friday night was 10:57:51, and that meant your weekend had started. Unless you were us and you worked on the weekend, but I digress.
Right.
But during that time, I was about 6 months in, and still really wanting to be an Imagineer and trying to figure out where this was going. And I got to meet a Disney Imagineer who was from my hometown. I happened to find out that he was in town, and I invited him to come to the studio. And he came and we hung out, and I got to meet him and his family, and that was really neat. And we stayed pen pals after that via email. And he was able to kind of give me little clues without, explaining too much, but with what he could to help me in my journey to being an Imagineer. And so I was like, okay, I'm still trying to figure out how this is working, because I think as humans, we're always trying to figure out basically the end goal while we're still in the journey. And it's never going to be what we're processing on the journey because the next step hasn't happened yet. And so, probably a year later of, more and more getting this, this stirring is kind of happening within me, where my love of worship ministry and just like singing to the Lord and being a musician, is kind of bubbling under the surface. But I'm like, yeah, but I really want to be an Imagineer. This is what I feel I'm supposed to be doing. And, I was feeding every bit of that desire to be an Imagineer. Like every book I could find, every YouTube interview, every podcast, whatever, I was trying to consume it as much as possible. Ironically enough, because God is hilarious. I was in the Magic Kingdom sitting underneath Rocket Tower Plaza in Tomorrowland. And I was looking across at Cinderella Castle, and I felt this strong check in my spirit. And it was almost like this inaudible voice that said, "This isn't what I'm calling you to do." And I had learned so much about why I wanted to do this and why it was a good thing for me to do and everything like that. And I now had all this technical background that I could somehow apply now video experience and, professional, like an ABC affiliate, and ABC was owned by the Disney company, or is. And so I was trying to like really make it work, like every little stretch to put all those synapses together. And I came home and, really thought, like, what am I supposed to be doing? And I could not shake the feeling of being a part of worship ministry. And at the time, I was kind of in between churches. I was never like away from the Lord or upset at the church. I just knew where I had been was no longer where I felt I was being fed or that was really working for me. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I was listening to, friends' churches online and whatever. And I knew Jim had gone to this other church and invited me to come one time. And so we kind of talked about that, and he invited me to come on a Sunday morning. And it's funny, when you invite people to church, one of few things happened. One, they'll either talk about money. The person that has invited you isn't there. And that was my case. I think one of your kids was sick. And so I sat there alone in this strange church, and it was like, okay, this is
sorry.
All is forgiven. And the other one is there's a guest speaker. So it's always like, this isn't the regular guy. So if this sucked, don't worry about it. So eventually I came to like start really going to this church, and I'd been there for a few months, and I was walking, Jim, again, teaching a college class, and I was attending his class. And on the way to church, I was walking down this hallway, and I heard this girl singing, and I could just hear this tenderness in her voice. And she was singing this just slower song. It wasn't like an upbeat, amazing moment. I was running late. Like I was going to skip the worship thing and run to the class. And I was the only one in that hallway. And in that moment, I felt God say, that's what you're supposed to be a part of. Mm-hmm. And it was a total 180 from, moving to Orlando and being a Disney thing, or going to Glendale in California and being a part of the Disney company in that way or whatever. And I was like, oh, you want me to, everything I was wanting to do was to get to Orlando. I just wanted to move to Orlando. If you literally for the last 10 years talk to me in the number of jobs that I worked in that time, anybody will tell you, yeah, Zach Brown's moving to Orlando. He's quitting this job because he's moving to Orlando, and then start a new job. And then 2 years later, I'd see somebody from the last job. Like, I thought you moved. And God had other plans. She almost always does. And I'm thankful for that. His thoughts are not my thoughts, and his ways are not my ways. Thank you, Lord. So I started on this worship team. I remember coming to you and sitting at your desk, and I said, hey, does the college band need like a mediocre rhythm electric player? And you said, they do. And so you gave me a phone number and a contact, and we put that together, and the journey continued there.
Hang tight. We'll be right back. Handcrafted under sunshine and fireworks, Core Memory Candles brings a level of quality that honors the Disney sense that they capture. Now, your home or office can smell just like some of your favorite attractions and resorts. Whether it's flying over the crystal clear waters of Fiji, sailing past a band of merry pirates, or stepping through the doors of the Great Ceremonial House, the Walt Disney World Resort is chock full of memorable smells that stay with you long after you've returned home. Fortunately, Core Memory Candles has found a way to capture those smells and will send them right to your front door. Also available in wax melts and fragrance oils. But wait, you can also get face mask and fabric refresher sprays. I've personally bought many different scents, and I can't wait to try more. You can get yours at CoreMemoryCandles.com. Core Memory Candles. Breathe, be home.
So not to take a total side detour here, but I remember you and the conversations we'd have, because we would work weekends together, obviously, or not obviously, but regularly. And we would spend a lot of those evenings before the show starting or waiting for college football to end, kind of talking about this stuff. And I remember, you sharing, this is kind of on my heart. I want to be an Imagineer. I love Disney. And we'd have all these, lighthearted conversations, but at the core of it, I could tell you were unsettled. There was something that was just kind of, you weren't where you wanted to be. You didn't know how to get where you thought you should be. And so talk for just a moment about that now, looking back. Do you think you could have done something differently, or do you think this is God guiding you through this process to mature you and ready you for where you are now? How do you view those years?
From the Disney aspect, people are like, well, you just need to go and be a part of the Disney college program. That'll get your foot in your door, because Imagineering, they just hire people that are already in the company, and you're already, the Disney way. But I kept telling people, I said, I don't want to go and be the guy that just pushes the green button at the start of the ride. I don't want to not love this thing that I love. And when you build it, it's different. It becomes like your baby. You've created this thing, and you've seen it through the design process, and then you get to watch people enjoy it. Again, going back to that, I've made this. I want you to see it, and I want you to like it. But just the idea of just going and being like one of the regular frontline people, not that it was beneath me. It's not that. I just thought that wasn't for me. And I've said it 5 times now. I'll probably say it more. Hindsight being 2020. If I had moved to Disney or been a part of it, all that when I wanted to at that time, I wouldn't have learned all the lessons hard and easy in that time, or been put in positions that I didn't understand or didn't appreciate at the time, that now I'm so thankful that I have those. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to answer the question in that way. Like, it was a weird time. Anybody who's in a job that they don't like, and they may not know exactly what they want next, but they know that they want something more or something different. And they kind of have a general idea. They don't have the full flavor. They kind of have the essence. They don't have a full drink. It's like LaCroix. It's kind of the essence of something. They know that they just want that. whatever that looks like. And that is a super tough time to be in. And I think we've both walked through that together and on various things in life. And I think in that time, it's very easy to just grasp at straws. Again, to just go, oh, well, this is going to get me out of where I am now, so this makes sense. Mm-hmm. Well, luckily or sovereignly, I think sometimes that next thing that doesn't really make sense is the best thing for you. And my greatest fear was that any other job that I took that was besides Disney or moving here to Orlando was going to stop whatever plan God had, that I was going to be slowing him down if I stopped. And I definitely think there's times when you can like put blocks in your life, but you're never going to get in the way of God's plan. You might put delays there. But I thought, if I take this one more job, that's going to be another year that I need to commit, or 3 years or whatever. And I'm going to be farther away from that. And, it's just kind of a strange thing when you have that unsettling and you're trying to figure out what's the smart thing, the intelligent thing. And really, as humans, we're always thinking, if I take this, does this look stupid? Are people seeing this and judging? Like, am I not looking mature? Am I looking irresponsible? Is this like a ridiculous thing? It doesn't matter what that path looks like. Sometimes it's a straight line. Most of the times it's very zigzaggy and loopy, and sometimes backwards, and lots of stoplights and those lights that last for 5 minutes. And you're like, I really think that the other cars have stopped and gone by now, and I should have moved on. You just have to trust that there's some sort of divine process.
So then let's move to the next part, because I remember at church when it was going to be your first time leading the worship. I remember, and I'm throwing this at you to kind of put you on the spot, but I don't think I had any concern whatsoever about your ability or your calling or your talent or any of the things you needed. But you were, I don't know what that word is, but you were, I'm lacking for the word to describe your attitude, but I know you felt, am I ready? And maybe you can fill in the blanks, but you were hesitant maybe to take
that's
that
exactly
first
the
step. Word. And so describe that moment for you. You were asked to lead. You were going to be up front. You were the one speaking. You were the one singing lead. You were the one playing. Describe that emotion in that time.
So I would say one of my biggest character flaws is that I, like you said, hesitate. Davy Crockett said, make sure you're right, then go ahead. And I think I took that to a far past perfection, to a point of like, oh, like, dude, you've waited too long. But when I do arrive at it, I'm pretty sure-footed. And so I think there's two people. There's like the overly confident, obnoxious people. And then there's the people that like wait too long and they don't get there. And I always ebb on the side of reluctance, not because I don't feel that I belong, but sort of. It's almost like, am I good enough to do this? Can I do this? Can I operate in this arena? Am I the right guy? Am I good? It always comes down to the fear of failure. So I'd been at the church for a little bit, and I was helping out, and I was very faithful with my position. Well, there was a shifting of positions there, and basically I was tapped to come in and fill in where there was a need. And I was asked to be an intern in the kids department and to be their worship leader. So it was all of a sudden was like, oh, wow, like now, again, it's that step of doing this thing that you enjoy and now getting like a title. Not that titles matter, but it's like that you're the one that they go to for this, that you're getting paid to do what you love to do. And again, even though it's that super exciting thing, I was terrified. I've never been confident in my voice. I've come to accept what it is and work with it. And that really goes back to when I was probably 10 or 11 years old. I was on a worship team in a kids' church, and I was the only guy. And my voice was still like finding what it was going to be. And it was really still very girly at the time. And there was a girl on our team that was actually very, very talented, who eventually went to Nashville and had quite the singing career. And I remember we were backstage one time, and she looked at me and she goes, your voice sounds so much like a little kid, like, or you something along those lines. And that stuck with me. And I always thought, I don't sound good. I can't be a vocalist. I'm not the lead guy. This is not my thing. I was always very self-conscious. And I knew there were songs that I could sing really well, that I would like belt in the car, I'd belt in the shower, whatever. But if I was ever around people, I never sang. Never. I just was hidden behind my guitar and I enjoyed it. And I wanted to just, because I was loved the 80s music. I just want to go out there and melt faces. Well, spoiler alert, I'm not that good of a guitarist. But I thought that was going to be my thing. And I can remember the very moment where the person who I was taking the position from, she was sitting with me at a piano and she goes, okay, here's basically your unofficial audition. If you're going to be taking this position, you need to sing. And I was very nervous to sing, and especially sing in front of this girl. And two things happened at the same time. One, she started playing this song, and we picked a very easy song, or at least easy range for me, something that people knew, and I started singing. And I think basically she didn't think that I was going to jump the octave where I was supposed to jump. And when I did, not only did I surprise myself in that I sounded good, but I caused this girl to literally stop playing, mouth drop open, and look over at me in complete surprise. And she said, "You're really good." So for as a guy, I was like, I'm the man. But then it was this amazing boost of confidence, like, oh, I can do this thing. And when you're doing something, you kind of have somebody who's walking alongside of you. It's like, okay, we can do this. We're doing this together. You're right there. You're right there. You're right there. Well, it came to the day that I was to lead for the first time. 2 songs. That's it. Not a whole set, just 2 songs. And I was leading in front of children. They don't care if you're just up there like singing Barney songs. They're just there.
Right.
And you and all of my other friends and the girl who had been working with me, like everybody was out of town on a missions trip. So I literally had like none of my support system. And I got up and I sang the 2 songs, and somebody had recorded it. I think she wanted to see it like recorded or whatever. And then the second, again, this amazing thing happened. And this isn't a bragging thing. It was just like this step that my self-esteem, my confidence needed. Was the service finished, and all of a sudden my phone started blowing up. Everybody that was away, that was on this trip, was texting me. And I'd found out that basically the video was sent to somebody on the bus, and people were passing the video around, and because nobody ever heard me sing before. And so it was this amazing thing where I remember these people that I really loved or admired or whatever now saw me a completely different way. And I think that's sometimes that's a horrible thing in life, but it's really special when somebody sees something in you that you might not see in yourself, but it helps you kind of move to this next place. And so again, like thinking, oh, I want to be this worship leader now. This is what I'm doing, and I'm embracing this. I've put the Disney thing away, and it's still something I love, but it wasn't like what I felt my life calling to be. And I'm leading kids. And I think the lesson in that was, if I can take something deeply spiritual and moving and whatever, simplify it, not dumb it down, but strip it back to the simple nucleus of these ideas and teach it to children, then I could do it anywhere. And so I spent 2 years not only leading Sunday school for 4th and 5th grade, but also leading worship from kindergarten to 5th grade. And let me tell you, like, playing in front of kids is the greatest thing ever, because they're the most forgiving audience. You could totally play the wrong chord. You forget the lyrics. It doesn't matter. They don't know the lyrics anyway. Nope. Kindergarten kids are just kind of spinning circles in front of the stage. First grade boys are like picking their neighbor's nose. Third graders are like kind of air guitaring. And then 4th graders are half paying attention. The boys are starting to like not pay attention. And then 6th or 5th graders are just checked out. They're trying to be cool and they're hitting each other. And so if you can make it through the gambit of doing hippie spinny circles in the front to hitting each other, man, like you can really make it through so many crowds.
That sounds like most adult services now in the church world. So for sure.
Mr. Anderson, please stop picking your friend's nose.
Okay, so now we got to transition, because you're in Pensacola, you're leading this, but you're making a move, and now that move draws you to where?
O-Town, Orlando, the city beautiful.
Seems like this is a place you wanted to be or felt called to be for a long time.
Yeah. So it's really kind of wild. When you come to a place where something that you have wanted for literally a decade when the call comes to, hey, we have a position for you. There's a church, there's a need. We have a job over here. There's a need. Basically, all your living is taken care of. It's in the place where you want to be, doing what you want to do. It's this very strange feeling. Not like that I have arrived, I'm done, let's just check out of life. But it's this amazing thing where it's like, wow, this is a huge step. You're no longer just like leading for students and like, youth camp and whatever. Now you are going to be responsible for like adults and the whole, the running of like adult teams. And now these people who've been either in church their whole life or they're new to this whole thing, and they can smell your BS a mile away. And it's kind of a really cool thing. There's no fluff. It's going to be real. And it's a crazy thing. Like if anybody's ever moved from their hometown somewhere, I mean, I lived in one place for 26 years, I don't know. And then moving is crazy because literally everything, all the memories, the woods where you skinned up your knee in 10th grade, and the place where you had your first heartbreak, and the place where you'd always go, after church on Wednesday nights, and all those things, like they're not there anymore for you anyway. And that's a hard thing, leaving family and friends behind, like all of your knowns. The exciting thing is, though, that when you go to a new place, nobody knows who you are. So you can kind of become the best version that you've ever been of yourself, because they haven't seen you like eat it on stage or make a fool of yourself or whatever. Like you can just bring your best stories and just let them think that you're awesome. And also all the stories that everybody's tired of hearing, nobody's heard of down here. So again, now you're this like comedy rock star, and it's like nobody can touch you. But then come the reality of the situation of this is work. A mutual friend of ours, David, said it's not a marathon. I mean, a sprint, it's a marathon. And I think the first year was incredibly hard because well, in the first month, I thought that I was going to come in and be this young guy and know what I was doing. And I've worked with these bands, and I've had, all the talent in town. And now I'm coming to the bigger city. I'm coming to a bigger pond, still
bigger fishbowl.
Much bigger fishbowl, still the same small fish, but thinking like, and then coming in and thinking you're going to change things in a month. And when it doesn't happen, this amazing things happen where you have to go, oh, maybe I'm not hot snot. And you get to step back and find a little bit of humility and try to embrace those hard moments and what you can learn from them. And it's just amazing. I love this town. I truly do. There's a reason they call it the City Beautiful. I think it's just incredible. I honestly believe that there's something metaphysically about this space here, that the sky is bigger. I think it has to be bigger to hold all the dreams that are created here, especially thanks to the Walt Disney Company. And I was listening to lots of podcasts, and I was just like, for right now, my work, 'cause I'm driving around a lot and doing service at people's homes. And so I had a lot of time. And after a while, you're really tired of hearing all of the same songs that are on the radio every single day. I'm thoroughly convinced that we play Land Down Under by Men at Work more than any place else in the country or in the Western Hemisphere, or whatever. It's nuts. And what is that? Head to Toe by Sheena E. and the Cult Band, or whatever it is.
Lisa and Cult Jam, yeah.
Yeah, every single day I hear that song. I don't know why. Somebody's like, it's got to be somebody's
Change
cousin.
radio stations.
Yeah. Well, everything else down here is a Spanish station. I don't know what anybody's saying. My hard rock station preset from home, 96.1 down here is like, and I'm just like, I don't know what's going on.
Work on your Espanol.
It's a sign from God. But It's really cool because I was listening to these podcasts, and it wasn't like, if that idiot can do it, but it truly was this where I was like, I've been through so many places and so many people have their story to share that I know their story, but the grand majority of the world doesn't know any of these stories. And I just love conversations with people that just are interesting. I mean, not that a conversation with a Dell person isn't great, but at the same time, like hearing their stories and where they've been, because they're experiences that maybe you and I haven't had, but this person has. And we get to live that adventure with them and hear maybe their cautionary tales, the inspiring thing that might get me through tomorrow. It might not be my, big grand, oh my gosh, aha moment, but it's that, oh, wow, that's going to make me a better person for tomorrow. And that's really the whole thing. I was talking to a buddy of mine. He was like, well, what are you going to call it? And I said, I guess I'll just call it the Zach Brown Show. I don't know. And he goes, well, what's it about? And I went, I don't know, people's stories. And so I'd been very involved with this person through like an online community for like years and years and years. And then I finally got to meet him. And my caption on Instagram or whatever was met an old friend for the first time. And I thought that was very clever at the time. And I kind of moved past. And then I thought, ooh, that's going to be the whole thing. I want you to leave this show going, I know who they are. I know what they're about. Like if I ran into them on the street, I'd have a better idea of what they've been through. And that gives us a place to start. So I really want this to just be a thing where people come and it feels like home, where they meet people and they hear their story. And, some people do like weekly live chats and live streams on Facebook and whatever. And it's a great way for you to get to know them. And so that was really my whole purpose behind this episode. And I know it's a little self-serving, but hey, you clicked on it and you've been listening this far. So kudos to you. But I didn't want to ever monologue. So I was like, who's one of the best conversationalists that I know and who's available and all these people with the pandemic and whatever. And Jim, you're just an amazing person. And I thank you for being here and just letting me talk, but also asking me questions that I wouldn't have thought to ask myself.
Well, hopefully this was a good glimpse into the world of Zach Brown. I thank you for sharing your origin story with us and getting us a chance to know you a little bit better. I know the tens of thousands of listeners will be hopefully enjoying this all the way through. And a quick memory as we wrap that I'll share with you and one I always will treasure. Earlier this year, my son Trevor got married, and he got married to Mal right here in Pensacola. And one of the things they had in their wedding was a moment of worship. They actually got some of the greatest worship leaders I've ever known all together. And we were outside. It was cold but sunny, and just this beautiful moment. And because of the kind of the flow of the ceremony, you had to kind of continue to play a little bit longer than maybe expected. So, but in that moment, as we're waiting for, everything to get going and Mallory, the bride, to come down and kind of to get into the rhythm and the flow of it, as I'm getting ready to officiate, my son's wedding, a very emotional day, and you guys are playing Spirit Move. And it's just this chorus, instrumental going over and over and over again. And I happen to look over and you've got the rock star stance, guitar slung low, wide eye, and you got these sunglasses on, just glinting in the sunshine. And you look at me and you just give me that smile and that nod. And it was a encouraging moment for me, but a special mental image snapshot that I have always remembered and taken, because when you did that, it was like, everything's going to be okay. It was just this beautiful moment. So I thank you for that moment that I'll always hold special.
That was a really cool thing to be a part of. It was like kind of like the Avengers of worship. It was everybody it was so much talent in one spot. And I was just thankful to be a part of it. Like you said, it was just a crisp, cool January day. And gosh, that was awesome. That was so much fun.
It was perfect. But that just sums up kind of my thinking of you. There's a spark about you. There's a glint of sunshine off you that I think people are drawn to. And I'm grateful that I've gotten to know you. I miss you that you're far away now, but I'm glad that, we're still friends and we can still connect this way. And I thank you for wanting to share some of your stories with everyone else. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. Your words mean so much. I love you so much. You're one of my special people in this world. Everybody needs a Jim Carmack, somebody that you can just be real and vulnerable with. And, you need that person that will be encouraged, but also kind of call you in your crap too. Because if they're just giving you all the fluff, then they're not a real friend. So, Jim, I thank you. I thank you for your friendship. And we will definitely have you on the show because I want to interview you and share your stories with the world.
I look forward to it. Thanks.
Well, my friends, that's our show. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I know I did. And no, not just because we talked about me the entire time. I mean, that was great. But honestly, it was because I got to spend some time with Jim Carmack. Jim is one of my all-time favorite people in this world. I could talk to him for hours. It's usually over coffee, and it gets fast and intense and super deep, and it's amazing. Everybody needs a Jim Carmack in their life. and I can't wait to sit down with him again and record his story to share with all of you. You're going to love it. I know you are. You're going to be inspired. You'll laugh. You'll cry. It's going to be a good time. So anyway, as they say, stay tuned. Want to stay connected with the show? You can follow on Instagram and give us a like on Facebook. I'll post behind the scenes pictures, updates on all the latest episodes, more stuff like that. So like, comment, follow, subscribe, all the things. And while you're at it, if you would do me the great honor of leaving a 5-star rating over on iTunes, I would really appreciate it. It's super helpful and opens the door for more people to listen. I'm Zach Brown, and I want you to remember, today is a good day to try. Have a good one.